Dr. Waddell Brooks, Sr., your host, and this is Community Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, Community Forum has been on air since 1993. We started out in Zion, Illinois, on AT&T, and it's been converted over to Comcast, and we've been broadcasting ever since. We try to get people in Lake County that you should know. But today I decided to have something different. I just want to talk with you a little bit about your hosts, and I'm sure that you want to hear about your hosts. As a matter of fact, Mr. Percy McKinney from East St. Louis, Illinois, and we're raised up in an area called Goose Hill. So those of you from that area, you know that when you drive down 66 at that time, it's now Highway 64, you enter from 9th Street, you see a big sign that says, All American City. Of course, East St. Louis is no longer the All American City. As a matter of fact, it was the fourth largest city in the state of Illinois. Chicago, Rockford, and Peoria, and then East St. Louis. But East St. Louis probably has about maybe 20,000 people now. But what prompted this program was when Mr. Percy McKinney called me and stated that he was recommending that I would be honored at the Emma L. Wilson King Foundation annual gala affair. Is held annually with There's a Family honoring, and this is what we should do all the time, honor our people that have brought us this far. So this is going to be held October 5th at the Regency Conference Center, Tuscany Ballroom, Hilton Garden Inn, 400 Regency Park Drive, O'Fallon, Illinois. And we have many organizations and individuals that are participating by getting an ad in their souvenir book. So I will not be alone down there. Of course, my family will be going with me because my family is the one that I take pride in. That's the reason why I have been successful thus far. Ms. McKinney stated that he's been following me, and I've been doing a lot of great things for East St. Louis students, as well as activities that I have participated in the North Chicago, Lake County area. Now, we may start by saying I retired from the Navy Public Works Center at Great Lakes after 33 years of total civil service. Federal civil service. I served in Korea for 11 months, a total of 2 years in the Army. I just mentioned, since I mentioned Korea, that was a challenging experience over there. I went over in the 5th of January 1954, and I was in Korea at the 13th of July of that same year. But I was trained in a quartermaster, and I was a chief clerk in a 73rd Tank Battalion in Korea. Of course, I never went inside of a tank while I was over there, but I was the chief clerk handling the documents in the captain's office, which is quite a challenging experience there. Now, one thing I remember among many, there were a tent of eight of us, 8 soldiers in a tent. And it just so happens that we're from all parts of the country. Boston, Louisiana, and I was from Illinois, and so there's 8 different parts. And we had one discussion that I never will forget. And the white soldier from Augusta, Georgia, he said, Brooks, If the Lord had wanted us to be the same, he would have made us the same. Well, the reason I remember it so distinctly is because he was a chaplain of the outfit. But I told him that we're from the same dust. He looked kind of strange there, but this is what happened. We are from the same dust, and my career has been, up until now, has been trying to convince people, as if they didn't know, maybe some didn't know, that we are from the same dust, and we just have different colors. But we have one Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. He is our mediator, and we have to go through him to get to God. We're only on this earth for a short time. As a matter of fact, 70, and other years can be added. Moses was 120, and we have, no, longer than that, he was 120 to build the ark. He told the people it's going to rain, and he thought he was crazy, and so finally when the doors closed and everybody was screaming, want to get in. But we were placed on this earth for a purpose. And as soon as we can learn our purpose, the better off we're going to be. We're not here just to have a good time. As a matter of fact, I mentioned good time. When I first came to North Chicago, I served on the school board for 5 years. And I went down to Waukegan. I was living in North Chicago, went to Waukegan, and I mentioned about, having a good time with the fellows and so forth. But I never will forget this. One of the attendees at I think it was Shugs, I guess, to those that may remember Shugs, told me, say, Brooks, we don't want you to come down here anymore. You're on the school board taking care of our children, and we don't want you down here. We want you to stay there in North Chicago. That ring a bell with me, and that stuck with me all this time. My future activities has been around children. And we'll talk about that as we go along. Some of you may know about Daisy's Resource Center and Tots and Toddlers and so forth, but we'll talk about that. But being called about the Emma Wilson King Foundation made me reflect that on my 33 years in federal service, but I started with the Veterans Administration Hospital as an educational therapist. From there, I went to the Great Lakes. Well, I was there for 11 years. Then I transferred to Great Lakes as a counselor, counseling military people for 2 years. And then I was transferred to director of housing referral. Those of you at the Great Lakes probably remember me in 1970. 1970 to 79, I was in housing referral, and it was combined assignment. So I was housing referral / assignment, no more pay, but more responsibility for 11 years. And then I went to, I became an Equal Employment Opportunity Officer, a deputy Equal Employment Opportunity Officer, because as you know, the captain was the Equal Employment Opportunity Officer, and I was his deputy, which was his advisor. And we had many opportunities, and I just may reflect on just one major one that sticks out with me. We had very few African Americans in the Public Works Center, in which I was in charge of the, about 550 employees, and you could count the number of African Americans in the trade, in the shops. So what happened is that we advised the captain to say we could grow our own, that we wouldn't have to go to the unions. We had difficulty with the unions until we convinced them that they could work together with us. We will give the employees on-the-job training because we couldn't discriminate, so everyone participated in the program. And then we got College of Lake County on board, so they would go out there and get the academics. So academics at College of Lake County and the on-the-job training within our organization, Public Works Center, and we had very good success. As a matter of fact, I know she don't remind me mention her name because she got all kind of awards. Ella Miller still lives in North Chicago. She applied for a training for the heavy. What was it? What one of the non-traditional jobs, and so no one believed that she could do the job, but she said that she took the job, the training, because she had several youngsters she had to educate, and they paid good money. Well, this is no doubt about that. And so I salute her right now. We belong to the same church, and I tease her about that now and say she's real proud that she took the position. And there's other youngsters, there's Ralph Peterson. Some of you may know him, was one of the trainees in the Navy Public Works Center. So this is how that we can integrate our workforce. We cannot go through the normal chain, but there's other avenues. There's non-traditional ways that we can integrate our workforce. Well, that's enough about that. But I retired, and just fast forwarding this, and we'll cover this other later. When I retired, a position was open, a public service position in the radio. I was offered a position there as a radio host. Well, I always wanted to be a radio host, but I never had the training. But I got my on-the-job training from God. My mother always told me, she said, boy, you talk so much, your mouth's gonna get you in trouble one of these days. Well, then I told Mother, it has gotten me in trouble. I'm talking now for a half hour on the radio, well, leading discussion anyway. But I've been a host from 1990 up until the present time. 3 years after I was on the radio, Dave Allen said, Brooks, you have a TV voice. Well, I didn't know what a TV voice was, but anyways, I just like to talk a lot. He said, why don't you check into becoming a host for TV? Well, I did, and I passed the tests, and I've had my own program since 1993 to the present time. Those were two. That was my retirement, and still is my retirement. So being first is not the only time. It seems like everything I've done in my life, I've been the first. In East St. Louis, I just happened to be the second semester senior when the schools became integrated, and I was the first black to graduate from East St. Louis Senior High School, June of 1950. Now, I was real happy. I was concerned about, I told Lincoln High School, I want to be able to graduate, and I was hesitant about going over to East St. Louis just to prove, just integrate the schools. But I decided to go on over, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here now is because I received an academic scholarship to Illinois State University. And the way the Lord works, I remember the counselor's name. He was Walter Johnson. When I got up into complete college and came up into this area, then I found out that Walter Johnson rather, was a superintendent of schools at Libertyville High School. Now, he was the one that offered me the scholarship out of high school, and I come up into this area, and he's a superintendent. So I never did get a chance to meet him personally, but we did talk on the telephone. His wife has passed, and he has since passed then. So I can credit Walter Johnson with that connection. Otherwise, my life would have been a lot different. Another connection I found, there are many opportunities there, but there was, in 1985, there was a championship track team, the 440-yard relay. And there was a team from East St. Louis that tied for the championship with a team from North Chicago. That was, I don't know whether that was just a coincidence or what on that, but I get the names of I have the names of the team members. The one was Reverend John McBride. Here we go. Reverend John McBride, Billy King Jr., Alan Turner, and Richard Wright. Those were the four that was on a championship team that tied with the North Chicago members. And I do, East St. Louis High members. And I do have the four names of East St. Louis, just in case they are watching the tape too. Willie Terry, Nathaniel Grady, Michael Ricketts, and Albert Randall. So that's another East St. Louis, North Chicago connection. And the other connection is that East St. Louis was at the bottom of the student achievement level in the state of Illinois. And North Chicago is just above them. Now, that's another connection. And it doesn't seem like there's, I think they may trade. Maybe North Chicago went to the bottom and East St. Louis is one level above them. Of all the schools in the state of Illinois, these two schools are the lowest achievers. Not only that, another connection is that the state took over North Chicago School Board, replaced them, but in East St. Louis, the state took over East St. Louis, but not the school board. So the school board fought the case, and they still run their board, but with the state supervision. But the state removed the board members from North Chicago Community High School, District 187. So that's another connection. Now, while we're on that, speaking of money, I have here State Representative Susan Garrett. Let's see, she presented a check to North Chicago for $200,000 to help cover the costs of rebuilding and re-equipping our high school's TV radio studio. This was Monday, March 20, 2000. $200,000, and we still haven't gotten a full operation of that studio yet, not for the $200,000. So money is not not a cure-all. Now lately you've been reading about AbbVie is donating $40 million, to build a school, with a Neal school, I guess, $40 million. But Abbey will not lose control of that $40 million because of the school district is under the state, and so they're not gonna, they're going to get probably a team from, I think it's Chicago, it's a team to come out and run the school. So that's a connection between East St. Louis and North Chicago, and also the funding situation too. Okay, that's a reflection. So, but that was the first. So I was the first Black to graduate from East St. Louis Senior High School. And I go back down there now, and we have started the Brooks Foundation Scholarship. And the family gives $5,000 per year from 1995 to 2017. It's when that terminated because of the funding situation. But from 1995, $1,000 to each high school in North Chicago, Woking, and Zion. A graduating senior received $1,000, and East St. Louis received $400 $500 scholarships. So that's a total of $5,000 per year. But for some reason, the students weren't applying, and whether who's responsible, we can always pass the blame to the counselors, I guess, and not letting the student know. Then we could say the student didn't fill out the application properly or whatever, be average, and whatever the requirement, the criteria was. But they received it from 1995 up until 2017. Another connection between East St. Louis and also North Chicago. The family started, this, I'm not necessarily taking these in order, but the family started Toston Tyler's Daycare Center 1974 in North Chicago. And there was no daycare center in North Chicago at that time. But what really prompted the wife and I to start a daycare center is because we would try to get our children engaged in daycare center, and they told us we're filled. But we have white friends, right? And so we had the white friends, they called, and they were accepted sight unseen. So I was active with NAACP, which I'll talk about later on. As a matter of fact, I was the president for several years. And she said, no, I'm gonna be on my own. So, saying, well, she must have a vision of something from God. And that's what she said, her and God did it. She was a contractor to build a facility to accommodate 100 children. So we drove out, and she looked at buildings, and she said, I like the front of this building, I like this part and this part. So I put it together. So you will not see another daycare center exactly like hers. Now, God was in the plan. No doubt God is omnipresent and omnipotent, and all-powerful. Happy Day Nursery was built. They already had a center, but they were building one for 100 children at the same time we were. And matter of fact, the director came over. She fell in love with the wife, which many people fall in love with her, and gave her assistance in programming at the center. And so we both completed the center at the same time, and both were filled. Matter of fact, we moved in April of 1974, and by September, the location it was filled, and we planned on adding to it, doubling the size. What I think the wife said was 1979. I guess we doubled the size, and that was not enough. The parents said we take our babies to an infant center. I mean, not to a home, and we bring our preschoolers to you. Would you consider building an infant center? She said, no problem. So she bought the house next door. I think it was owned by the Mayfields, and built the infant center to accommodate, I don't know, at least 50 infants. So she had infant and preschool. Well, that was not enough. So in 1989, she said, went to the state, said, what are your needs? And they said, a group home. She said, no problem. She went on her knees and prayed, and God gave her a vision to build a group home for girls. So she got a contractor's license, so she still has a contractor's license. And I tease her. What happened is that each tradesman would tell her the time that they should participate. The electrician, the plumber, the carpenter, and so forth. But she'd be right there with a hard hat on and jeans and so forth, supervising. So we had a great time. When the Lord is in the plan, who can stop it, So we got that built, and so she said, what's next? Now, all the time we had three youngsters, that we training to go to college. We asked them where they going to college, and when they got ready to graduate, and they said, Daddy, do we have a choice? and so because my oldest daughter went to, they all chose their own colleges. We just paid the bill. Went to Michigan State University. She matriculated with Magic Johnson, 1977, but Magic Johnson stopped after 1979, and the rest is history with him. Something was unusual because the students, the white engineers that he graduated with, got higher salary. They all beginners right out of college, but they got higher salaries than he did. Now, he was saying something is wrong with this picture, But he didn't complain, and because it's a great salary they was getting, but they just got greater salaries, okay? So now he's retired. The youngest daughter chose National College of Education, and she stayed there and got her master's. Like I say, Daddy paying the bill, so they go ahead, And matter of fact, in engineering, he said, Dad, I need another year. Because engineering is a tough field there, so I said, go for it, no problem. I mentioned go for it because what we did became landlords in about 30 units of in a building with 4 different buildings, and to financially support them through college. And after they got through, we sold the buildings because that was they fulfilled their use, so we sold them and just concentrated on the daycare and group home for girls, Now my baby daughter has she has a doctor's in education now too. My wife has 4 doctors. There was a college in Birmingham, Alabama, and she don't know who referred her or who told them about her, but they sent a team out, and find out what she was doing, got all the information, and she got the paperwork and all this, completed. And they came up to see, and the president of the college and his board came up, and that's the reason she got the different Doctor of Laws, Doctor of Education, Doctor of Humane Letters, and Doctor of Literature, And he said that this Dr. Daniel T. Grant, and never forget him, he said that we want to come out and redo the ceremony at your place. And we're so impressed. So we got other doctors in the area. The late Phil Kerrigan was one, Bridges was one, and others that have about 10 different people had doctor's degree to come out and participate in the ceremony. Well, that's kind of bring you up to date on family, because family, they see, prays together, stays together. So, I'm from Lexington, Mississippi. They call a place called Howard Bottom. There are some of you, I have met some people from Howard Bottom at First Corinthian Church that knows about Howard Bottom, just a little north of Oprah Winfrey's town in Mississippi. But we, so Natchez, near the Mississippi River, in Lexington, we got together in Chicago. So that's how God works. He puts together, you don't know why, Okay, let's see, the wife got a call from Washington, D.C. And the young lady says she's from President Obama's office, and she's been selected to receive the second highest award in the nation. And she said there are 6,000 people, and you're one of 13 that have been selected. Well, she said, I'm going to let you know, I'm going to turn your name in, and I'll get back to you. And within 2 weeks, she was back to her and told her she had been selected. So transportation, hotel Regency, just a block or two away from the White House, was complimentary. And of course, we took the family along. The family together stays together, and we took them along because we had to pay for the expense for them. I think about 5 people we could take. My god sister went along too. And that's an experience that they'll never forget. Just flew out there. We had a timeshare, and the owners said, you've been selected to go to Hawaii. You want to go? So we said, Hawaii, and told us the hotel, Oahu, one of the hotels there. And I said, well, how we able to do that? She said, well, it's complimentary. And I said, how can you? She said, well, we own the hotel, so we can do what we want to do. So we drove down to East St. Louis, and the 3 kids stayed with my mother there, and while we spent, I guess, 4 days and 3 nights in Hawaii. And one other, and I'll leave this, one other time we traveled, I was president of the American Association for Rehabilitation Therapy back in 1970. And the organization decided that I should go out to have breakfast with the Health Education and Welfare at that time, had a breakfast meeting and so forth. So they flew me out there, but I took the family, the 3 kids. We went out there and had breakfast. While we were there, we visited Congressman McClory that time, Robert McClory. And he took the kids down on the floor, and he told his fellow congressman, this is my nephew and nieces, they look. And that's something that they have not forgotten either, So we travel. We always include them in our travels, what have you. But I was raised in a community called Goose Hill. Goose Hill was a self-contained community in East St. Louis. We had several grocery stores. Here in North Chicago, we don't have one. We had several in this small community. We had a drugstore. We had a cleaners. We had several churches. There's Armour, Swift, and Hunter packing companies. We had 3 packing companies, right, in that certain area. And I remember working there during the summers. We didn't have transportation. I walked to work. We $1.76 an hour. Never forget that. Go over a fence and get to work and so forth within a walking distance. I attended Garfield grade school, 1st to 4th grades, Carver 5th through the 8th, and then after then we walked to Lincoln High School, which is twice as far as East St. Louis Senior High School. And the kids, I remember distinctly being in the windows waving, and so forth, and so we just endured this, and so until the schools integrated. And integration took place before Brown versus Board. Now, Brown versus Board, 1954, but we integrated in 1950, right. Now, this Emma Wilson King Foundation is being held in O'Fallon, Illinois. Well, O'Fallon at that time, I was there in the 50s, was unheard of. But the exit from East St. Louis to Belleville, some of you heard of Belleville, it's near Scott Air Force Base, so they exit going to Belleville and Fairview Heights and other communities around. And that's when East St. Louis is, like I mentioned, about 20,000 now. It used to be the 4th largest in the state. Well, I was born in Lexington, Mississippi, and I just want to mention my grandfather was a sharecropper. So what happened is that one thing I definitely remember, stick with me, I was young at that time. My aunt used to take me to see her parents during the summers. And my grandfather went to sell his crops, picking cotton. Picking cotton was the job down there, picking cotton out of the bowls and so forth. And it takes a lot of cotton to fill up a sack, They were picking maybe 200 and 300 pounds a day, I guess, and I was picking about 50. So they send me back to the house and say, you be the water boy. I was in a way just picking 50 pounds, Or I would try to use the holder, the land, and I would, if you raise up on the plow, then you miss a whole area. So he had to take the plow away from me then. So I just was not cut out for farming. But he took me to sell up his crops, and I noticed one thing. I was just small, but there's only one set of books. And I said, something is wrong with this picture. So I said, well, he kind of hunched me down so I wouldn't get excited and say anything. And I said right then, when I grow up, I want to keep my own books, and which that means that encouraged me to major in business education. So that was the starting of my business, education and also my occupation. is watching that, because it just wasn't right, and I couldn't understand that. And I had an uncle that went to military, and when he got out the military from fighting in World War II, he just came down there to get his clothes, and he left and went to Ohio, and hadn't been down there since, because that was not the type of life he wanted to live after spending time in the military, watching his friends get killed in the same foxhole. So he could have been next, foxhole that he was in. My parents came from Lexington, Mississippi when I guess I was about 8 months old, and they left for better opportunities. My father left the home when I was about 2 years old, and so my mother got support from the neighbors. She worked WPA, which was the job then, and so her friends told her, don't officially divorce him until after he get out of service. So she would still get the check from him while he's in service. And this is how and I don't, up until the time he passed away, and when he got honorably discharged from the Army, he's still father. And when the kids go down, then they'll tell you now, we always went by and gave him something. We gave him something, although he didn't, provide for the family. We gave him each time we go down, and he willingly accepted it too. So that's okay. That's between him and God, right? But that was Now up here, and I know time is fleeing, I just may mention about East St. Louis. They say, is anything good come out of East St. Louis? Well, Senator Richard Durbin graduated from Assumption Catholic School, East St. Louis. It's now a prison facility, and Jimmy Connor, the retired champion tennis player, he's from East St. Louis. And we had, some of you may, Jimmy Carter appointed an attorney named Donald McHenry. Donald McHenry was my college graduate classmate. He was appointed to ambassador to United Nations, under the Carter administration. I think they named the school after him in East St. Louis. That's a great honor. And I mentioned about the track team, and there are many other things that happen in East St. Louis. Let's see, I want to mention a friend of mine named Jesse Harris. I showed the wife my yearbook, 1957 yearbook. Jesse Harris, there's a state building in Springfield named after him. Now, I didn't keep up with him, but evidently he must have been a great person within the state. I think he worked for the Social Security Administration or what have you. But there's a building named after him, When I graduated from college, blacks had a difficult time getting jobs. Just because I was accepted for a position, everything looked good, and I think St. Louis, Missouri. And so they asked for a picture. And I sent a picture down, and right away they sent me a letter back, say this position in teaching and business had been filled. So the Bureau of Appointments called me over, and he said, Brooks, he said, I have, Waddell, he called me, well, there's a position in educational therapist at Downey at that time, Downey. he said, take a look at it. He realized the difficulties that, I was having. And so I say, he said, we're going in the direction of Waukegan, and you run into it, because he didn't know. So I took one of my classmates, Roy Foley, from East St. Louis, and we drove up, and I was accepted on site and gave him 2 weeks' notice, and I was there, and the rest is history. And I have to credit two people, Walter Johnson, for scholarship to get into, go to Illinois State. By the way, the tuition was $40 a semester. $40. It's probably $10,000 a semester now, but $40. But that was 1950 though, And so my mother would send me about $20 a month to subsidize, and I worked in the to help subsidize her by working in the kitchen, and $10.50 a week I was getting for working in the kitchen there all the way through. Of course, church was first in our lives. We had most of the church members, students were from Chicago and East St. Louis. And we couldn't wait to get to the choir, because we had a difficult time having choir rehearsal because we was studying, and so forth. But we had a full choir every Sunday. We were there. As a matter of fact, I may mention, people, they say 3 things get away from you when you get old. The first thing that goes to memory. I don't remember the other 2, but I never will forget Elizabeth and Joseph Johnson in Bloomington, Illinois. They insisted that I come have dinner with them every Sunday. They would take me to their home, have dinner, and take me back to my abode, And I just God, that's all, And that's one of the reasons why I reach out to youngsters now and try to curtail discrimination, because it's tough enough as it is. Then you have discrimination on top of that. What can the kids do? It's no wonder that the majority of the prisoners are brown and black. It's designed that way. You can't, the wife and I try to get a home and have to get the realtor to intercede to get our home. I tell you what's on Seymour, 1718 Seymour, we're the first black to move into that block. And of course, the block didn't change, just the color has changed, but it's a Polish neighborhood and so forth, but that's how bad it was. And then when we went to buy the home, our own banks wouldn't give us money to buy. And I couldn't understand this, but prayer changes things. The people talk about prayer. I guarantee you, prayer changes things. We went to the SBA. So SBA said, we're not in competition with the banks, local banks. If you get 3 letters of denial, then we'll consider giving you a loan. We said, no problem. And do you know that our own banks gave us the first letter without any hesitation at all? First letter. So we took the 3 letters back, and I told this story many times, is that we went to the secretary and got the paper. She said, come back in 3 months, whatever. It took a long time to get SBA loan. But we had our papers together. We're both college graduates, She's Northwestern, and I'm Illinois State, and we ready to go. And so my wife said, we're going to have lunch. That's the Dirksen building, I believe. And she said, we're coming back and we're going to see a counselor. So she smiled, get some papers. We went up to lunch, filled out the papers right quick, brought them back, saw a loan. The counselor gave us tentative approval the same day. That's how you got to have this. That's when education is so important. You never know. You never know. It's all walks of life. You're not going to be some people are champions like Serena Williams. She goes out the other night and she beat the Chinese champion. She was a champion in China. Serena beat 6-1 and 6-love. Only girl only scored one game in 2 sets. Now she's a champion in athletics. Arthur Ashe, Thea Gibson, all that. But education, we cannot overemphasize. We got the College of Lake County just right next door to help give you, they even ready to give you remedial training to get you ready for college. And they also have about 18 colleges that are represented at the College of Lake County. So you go through this remedial to get ready for college, and the college is right there. I know my school, Illinois State, is one of the 18, that are represented there. I mentioned about Director of Bureau of Placement, say go in a direction of Waukegan, and so we did it, and we got it there, and so what I know a deacon of a church in East St. Louis found out I was going. He said, when you go to Waukegan, I want you to look up T.R. Starnes, Sr. Now, that's something else. Well, at least he gave me a lead, right? Of all the people in this area, he said, look up T.R. Starnes, Sr. And so I went to church there at Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai is very close, to. And who did I meet but T.R. Starnes, Sr. singing the solo, Because He Lives. That's very appropriate. Because He Lives. And also his son right now, we talk about it all the time now, he still belongs to the church there, T.R. Starnes Jr., I guess it is, this type of thing. But I went to Shiloh Baptist Church, just God leading me again, and I met a family, Omar Branch. We went to grade school together. And here I come in this area. He lives in Kenosha, Wisconsin, but his wife went to church in Shiloh Baptist Church, the Turner family. And so that became our family. Wife named Beulah, Beulah Turner, Beulah Branch. And I say, boy, this is really God. And so ever since then, we've been adopted part of their family because each time they have a holiday event or whatever, they make sure that we're called. As a matter of fact, Susie Fisher used to call, Brooks, when you coming over now? She said, we're waiting on you to eat, And that's every time. We came up to part of the family until she passed away recently. And Eula, her sister, is responsible for us to get in a place, because I was commuting from Chicago, right? And she called me and she said, Brooks, I have a place to recommend for you. It was a basement apartment, all furnished, all utilities furnished, for $95 a month. And Mrs. Geneva Daniels, Geneva Daniels. Some of you out there probably know her. I think she passed away now, but $95 a month, all furniture. And so we had one child, and so my wife's expecting for a second one. She's saying, I know you guys are looking for a larger place. So that was just telling us, but we're ready at that time. And that's when we had difficulty because of discrimination trying to get it, but we finally got it, and things are working out. So we just, by the way, my job at the VA educational therapist was teaching all commercial subjects. Okay, all commercial subjects. Typewriting, shorthand. I know you probably don't identify with shorthand now, but I still can write the shorthand too, the symbols and so forth, you know. But that's what I taught for 11 years, you know, at the VA. So everything has been working. I think maybe I could just in my few comments that I've been giving you is, let's see, we have, our baby daughter taught at Buckner Grade School 9 years, Daisy's Resource Center 10 years, Yeager School in North Chicago 3 years, Forsyth School 5 years. Well, we may say this, the principal of Yeager for 3 years, the principal at Forsyth for 5 years, principal at Learn Charter School 1 year, and now she's assistant principal in Kenosha for the past 4 years. Well, we're real proud of her. And she got an award from the president through the efforts of Eleanor Murky. So kudos to Eleanor Murky and also Miss Cotton, I guess. The Cottons, the Reverend Pastor Cotton, in some reading program. I guess my daughter has at Forstall the highest reading percentage, and though you educators know that the highest student achievement in the whole district, and one of the about the second or third highest in the state. And she got recognized by President for that. Okay, well, I hope I shared my comments with you, and maybe I can come back with a part 2 at a later date. But this has been Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr. I'm the host for Community Forum, retired Equal Employment Opportunity Officer, Navy Public Works Center, Great Lakes, Illinois. And the list goes on and on. I'll be receiving award, honored at the Emma L. Wilson King Foundation Gala, October 5th of this year. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Community Forum. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host.